So the whole Premier League team this season is now leaked, meaning we have loads of investments for you guys to go and make. So just before the video does start, a quick little ad on a trading service I offer over on Twitch. For the cheapest premium trading service for just £4, €4 or free with Amazon Prime. You'll get yourself daily trading and investing guides covering both Xbox and PlayStation with an array of different techniques depending on your budget. I've been trading for over 10 years, making over 100 million on multiple titles, and recently making over 10 million in the first month for the last 3 years. So in today's video, we're going to be explaining you guys through a nice investing trend that worked as soon as we knew who was in the team of the season last year. I'm going to show you guys examples and explain why they worked. Then I'll be showing you guys the current leaked Prem team of the seasons, and then finally giving you guys a bunch of investments to make. So the trend that we're going to be going through today is basically talking about buying old special cards in positions where there aren't any cheap team of the seasons. So we have got the Premier League team of the season from last year. Now obviously you've got to appreciate the prices on here are going to say a lot less because these were the prices at the end of FIFA compared to what it was during team of the season. But if we look at some of the players, we can see in some positions there were an abundance of cheap team of the seasons. For example, if we look in CDM, we had Rodri, who would have been nice and cheap, Rice, who would have been nice and cheap, Bernardo Silva, that wasn't the most expensive, and on top of that, Bruno Fernandes. We then look in some of the other positions like Alisson was nice and cheap. We then look at some of the centre-backs, and there weren't too many centre-backs, but there was Diaz who was cheap, but Van Dijk who was expensive. But then we get to some of the positions where there were no cheap team of the seasons. And these positions are such as Cancelo. Now when Cancelo was released, his card was going for 900k, and he was the only team of the season Prem left-back. Which meant when people were building full Prem teams because they're doing Premier League upgrade SBCs during the team of the season, they were completing player SBCs, doing the guaranteed Prem packs, people ended up with very, very heavy Prem teams. But no one was packing Cancelo because it was 900k, and likewise no one was buying Cancelo because it was 900k. So as a result, when people were building their teams, they went, okay, so I need a Premier League left back, but I'm not getting Cancelo. Which meant that everyone went back to looking at some of the other special cards. So team of the season for the Premier League occurred on the Friday the 6th of May. We can see that Robertson, before Friday the 6th of May, was going for 117k. That's because maybe some people were panicking about him. They thought maybe that team of the season Cancelo is going to be really cheap, and I don't want to use the Robertson. The week before that we had a team of the season Livramento, which meant he got sold on. But what ended up happening is this team of the season Cancelo was so expensive that nobody ended up using him, and they all had to go back to old cards, which allowed this Robertson right here to go from 117k to nearly 200k in just a few days because the other card was completely unaffordable. We can even look at cards that were way cheaper who had the exact same trend. We got Reguilon, and Reguilon before the Friday was only going for 56k. Well, because Cancelo was so expensive, he went from 56k to 103k. This guy literally doubled in price, or just under doubled in price, because there were no cheap alternative options. Also during that week there were no left back SBCs released. There were strikers, left wings, right wings, and I think centre backs and a few centre mids, but no left backs, which as a result meant that people once again weren't replacing the left backs in their team. Well, lucky enough, we have got the whole team of the season leaked, including SBCs, including moments players, and so on. And what I can do is I can look at this team and basically gauge, okay, so where's the lack of cheap team of the seasons? So let's go through the team. Now, all the players in gold are players that are in packs. All the players that I've added as a special card are cards that are coming out as objectives and SBCs. So you start off with the starting 11, Rashford. Not going to be cheap. Left wing. We then get to Martinelli, and I'll be honest with you, he'll be relatively cheap. Now, the other problems we have with left wing not being a good option is we have both Matoma being an objective and an SBC, and we have St. Maxim being an objective SBC. And I'd put good money on one of them being cheap. So, to start off, we can rule out left wing. I don't think left wing's a good play. I don't think Martinelli will be too much. But more importantly, there's two SBC players. We'll then move to striker. Now, Haaland is going to be a super expensive team of the season, so that's great. Kane is going to be a cheaper team of the season, but he's going to be less desirable. But the problem we have once again is Ollie Watkins is going to be an SBC and objective, and Kai Havertz might have striker utility. So striker is kind of like comme ci, comme ça. It's not amazing, but I think there's a few players that will work. I think if you were to have maybe, let's say, some Prem strikers in your team, I think someone asked me about Martial in my stream earlier. I said I don't think Martial really drops in price, because I don't think any of the players are his sort of price range, and his sort of ability, because I don't think you'll see that many people replacing Martial with Kane just because of the pace, really, and potentially the 3-star skill moves. We then move to right mid, and we've got Saka, again should be relatively expensive. Then we've got Salah, should be relatively expensive. Now there's an outside chance maybe Mitoma, St. Maxim or Havertz will have right wing utility, but I'd go for a good gamble looking at their base cards and their all positions that there won't be any cheap right wings. So there shouldn't be any cheap right wings because both Saka and Salah I would personally dub as being quite expensive, because I imagine Saka will get a good card. So I think there's a gap in the market for right wings, way more so left wings. We then move into the midfield. Odegaard I think will probably end up being about 500k. Casemiro, 150, 200k. But the good thing for Casemiro is he actually can't be too cheap because he's going to at least be a 93, 94 rated card, which SBC fodder wise is at least 100k. And obviously Kevin De Bruyne's not going to be too cheap. Bruno Guimaraes has a FUT birthday card that's 800k, therefore probably that team of the season isn't going to be cheap, which then means we kind of don't have any cheap outfield players. We then get to the SBCs of Havertz and Paulinho. Now Paulinho, I feel like is the more midfielder here / CDM. Havertz, I'd say, is definitely more offensive. So I think it really depends when Paulinho comes out. So this week we've seen quite a lot of the left wings do really well because St. Maxim was expected to come out earlier in the week. St. Maxim didn't actually end up coming out this week, which meant a lot of left wings probably performed a little bit better than if they released St. Maxim a little bit earlier. So I think cheap CDMs can do well until they release that Paulinho, and I think they'll go down. So it's a bit of a fighting with fire. They'll keep rising and rising and rising, but if you get too close to the fire and they release the fire as an SBC, then that can go and drop your players. So I think they're, is nowhere near as good as right wings, I think, but there is a bit of a gap in the market for some of the cheaper CDMs, something like a Team of Season Rice. Again, we'll go underway with investments in a sec. So that's the cam centre mid CDM covered. We then move to left back Zinchenko. Now Zinchenko has a FUT birthday card that is 200k. I don't actually think the Team of Season Zinchenko is going to be that cheap. I think it'll be 3, 4, 500k. Which means that I heavily believe that there is a gap in the market for Zinchenko. Oh yeah, there is also a Reece James in packs, which isn't on the squad because I didn't have enough players. Where the right backs we'll then get to is Reece James and Trippier. I think Reece James is going to have a decent card and not be too expensive because he's won the moment. And then Trippier I don't think is going to be too expensive. So maybe there is a gap in the market for the extremely cheap right backs, but I don't think there'll be too much because I think Trippier and Reece James won't be the most expensive. 2 team of seasons, going to be quite similar cards. One's a moment, which shouldn't be as good. We then move to centre-backs, and centre-backs is a really, really interesting position. So right-backs, I'd leave it unless you may be looking at 30, 40k cards. Centre-backs is a very interesting position. Saliba's got a card already out, 400k, I think his team season's 6, 7, 800k plus. Expensive, good. Diaz, I don't think will be that expensive, 2, 300k if we look at his card last year. But every formation needs more than one centre-back, which is why, even though last year we had one cheap centre-back, the centre-backs still performed very well. Now the other centre-backs we have is Varane. Now I believe unless they really underbuff that card, aka don't upgrade it much, or they have very high pack weight on him, I believe that should also be an expensive centre-back SBC. Sorry, centre-back. Now there is another SBC, which again isn't on here, which is a Laporte. But as long as Laporte isn't expensive, it should be good. Now, because we had Joe Gomez having an SBC last year, and Joe Gomez was 600k for his SBC. And he didn't actually drop the Premier League centre-backs because people just went, well, that is too expensive for that calibre of a card. So that kind of gives us hoping on Laporte having an expensive SBC and then Varane not being cheap. As long as those two things work in your favour, some of the cheaper centre-backs, I think, 100k or 70k and below can do pretty well. That leaves us with the only position left, a goalkeeper. I don't personally think you want to be buying goalkeepers. If there's going to be 2 goalkeepers in the team, last year, what was it? Team of Season Lloris the week before Prem Team of Season absolutely crashed when Prem Team of Season came out because these were so easy and so cheap to pack. I don't personally rate buying the goalkeepers. So a little overview on the positions I think they'll be good. Hold off left wings. Right wings I think will be really good. Left backs I think will be really good. I think there's a slight market for CDMs, a slight market for centre backs, and a slight market for the right backs. So now what I'm going to do is I'm now going to show you kind of what players I recommend buying. So move underway at left backs, and this is just showing you right here. Zinchenko is about 200k. I personally think that his team of season will be more demanded. I'd be surprised if they don't go and give him double 4-star skills. So I believe he'll be about 300k, which is quite interesting because actually a lot of the left backs that are in the Premier team of season are about 300k. You got Cancelo, we got Malacia, and we got Robertson, all looking about the 300k mark. So I wouldn't actually go and buy them because I wouldn't go and buy a player that is going to go and replace a player. I'd want to go and buy someone who's basically got a completely different market. So like for example, if a McDonald's opened up, a 5-star restaurant isn't going to go out of business because a McDonald's opened up, because you've got different people going to the McDonald's, then you do the 5-star restaurant. So we're not looking for people who are 5-star restaurants, we're looking for the McDonald's left backs. So we're not looking at the expensive ones. I would say 100k and below. If we're thinking Zinchenko's going to be 300k, anyone that is 100k should hopefully be a big enough gap between the two cards. So I think Cancelo's really, really good. Wouldn't go on the Robertson, wouldn't go on Malacia. Perisic sadly only has left wing back. I wouldn't look at the guys who are left wing back. I think Walker-Peters, brilliant, because Zinchenko's not going to touch 35k or anywhere near that. So the people who, again, don't have as many coins, I think Walker-Peters is a great call. I think Junior Firpo, great call. Yes, some would argue that, but enough people, I can tell you, haven't done that that objective for that card to not do well. I mean, it's risen really nicely in the last 2 weeks, showing you that there is demand for the card. And then it's kind of interesting because there really aren't many left backs in the Prem. You've got these two Estupiñans, I'd say Luke Shaw, and if you want to go on a real long shot, Lisandro Martinez. Because I did say that centre backs has a slight bit of demand. So if you can go and cover the centre back and the left back, well then you're covering the position that I think is the best, left back. And then you're covering a position that I think is going to do semi-good, centre back. So you can also say that with Godfrey. I don't know how much Godfrey is really used at left back. I know he's got pretty decent demand at centre back, but that's that. So another really outside one is actually Gold Cancelo. Obviously, this Gold Cancelo can actually be treated as a special card because he's just not in packs anymore. And in all fairness, he is, kind of better than half these cards. He's got really nice links with the likes of Portugal. Well, I guess Portugal isn't that useful this year, but you've got Man City. That'll obviously give us a nice link to the likes of the Laporte SBC, as well as a few other, obviously, the Man City players. So that would be left back. So now getting underway with the right wings. Now there's a bit of a weird thing about the right wings, and that is the majority of right wings can be played in left wing. And I said earlier, I think left wings are an awful position because we've got the likes of ASM and we've got the likes of Mitoma. So what I would do is when you're looking at the right wings to invest in, try and think, okay, well, how many people are playing him in right wing and how many people are playing him in left wing? So for example, if I was going to be going with the likes of Salah, obviously people are only playing the Salahs in right wing. So we've got nothing to worry about with there being left wing SBCs. Whereas when we get to cards like Foden and maybe Saka, there is the slight worry that actually people might be playing Saka on the left mid. And if people are playing Saka in the left mid, yeah, they can move him to right wing, but maybe they've got a really good right wing. And therefore when there's a left mid SBC, maybe Saka could drop a little bit. So if you want the best thing investments, I'd say you're looking at 200k or below, because I don't think those team seasons are going to go anywhere near that. And ideally no left wing utility whatsoever, or you're very confident that a very low percentage of people are playing them in left wing. So let's go through a few of the players then. So again, I think these Salahs are a little bit too expensive. Phil Foden, okay, but I do worry that he might have a fair few people playing him in left wing, especially with his default card being left wing. Quite like Joe Cole, a lot of right wing utility and cam utility. I can see a lot of people playing him down the middle, so I think that's pretty decent. Saka is a really popular card, but again, the worry is people playing him on the left mid, because that is 1/3 of his positions, whereas obviously with Cole, it's like 1/4 of his positions, 1/4. I wouldn't go with stuff like Lundberg. I do think Lundberg might be a little bit too plebby for the likes of that. Kocher, I think, could be okay. So going to the second page, and we've got the likes of Lucas Moura. I think is really good. Only got right mid, right wing utility. People are only playing him in right mid, right wing. Also, you've got the Joelinton demand from last week, so that should be good. I think this Antony's massively overkill. I think there is a chance that again Saka might replace the demand for the likes of that Antony. And I believe, oh yeah, one to watch Antony can also work well. Again, people are using him from last week for the likes of Joelinton. And again, I don't believe either of those team seasons are going to touch anywhere near as cheap as Antony. And again, he's nothing but demanded in right mid and right wing, a position of which shouldn't be replaced by any SBCs or players in the squad. So those are two of my favourite positions. Again, if you did want to look into centre backs and right backs, all you got to do is just look at players, I'd say, under 50k who have risen in the last week or two, because we've had a few of the objectives in the last week or two needing full Prem teams, and you can use that to gauge how much demand there is for a player. But hopefully this video has helped you guys and given you yet another investing avenue. Thank you very much for watching, and I shall see you guys in a video tomorrow.